listening to the Wandering Womb podcast with Jess and Jaimi. Strong women, strong drinks, strong views, and strong language.
They've not heard that for a while because we often don't start with full bottles.
I'm sure they've missed vicariously drinking through us.
Yeah. For anyone who wants to know, that is Smirnoff Ice.
Stop outing me.
Going into a quadruple shot of absolute vodka.
Listen, I like Smirnoff. Right, I'm sorry, that's going to make me sound terrible, but Smirnoff Ice is a mixer. I'm sorry, but it is.
I use most Alka-Pops as a mixer now as well.
I think using Alka-Pops as a mixer is genius because they taste, like, some of them taste great, and then you can just add a little bit more vodka in them, and then it's a decent drink.
Yeah, absolutely. I am drinking. This bottle's lasted me ages, actually. It was on offer at Morrison's, but I don't know if it still
Jaimi
is.
doesn't pour herself quadruples.
Gordon's White Peach Gin with some lemonade. It's really nice. Okay, so this podcast is about the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial. It's one that we've been wanting to do for a while, but we've been so incredibly burnt out.
I think everybody was, weren't they?
Yeah, I think everybody was. I don't think anyone interested in or cares about women's rights haven't been burnt out by this.
To be honest with you, I think everybody got burnt out. I think the general public got burnt out. I'll be honest. I know that for lots of us that work in this space, it was fucking devastating to watch it play out over 6 weeks. But I actually think the general public got to the point where they're like, when will this end?
Yeah. So I have been following this case for quite a few years now. And I'll go through a little bit of background.
Fuck me, there's all... Gee, how much fucking absolute have you put in that?
You put the absolute in. I just
Did I?
Yeah, I just put the Smirnoff in. Let me add a bit more of this.
Sorry to interrupt that. Fucking hell, it's a paint stripper. Fucking hell. There you go. Top it up. Not with absolute, obviously. Oh. Right, you carry on. Sorry. Oh. Fuck me. Sorry, that was horrible.
So I've been following this trial for, well, not the trial, but the sort of relationship, I suppose, for a long time. I remember seeing a post on Facebook maybe 7-8 years ago about the Johnny Depp writing threats in his blood from his finger on that mirror.
Yeah, you were telling me about this, and I was like, I do not remember that.
Yeah, I remember.
And you do.
Yeah, and this was, before I was heavily into feminist activism, and then, sort of a few years later, the audio recordings got leaked. I listened to a bit of that.
Now I remember doing that. Me and you sent them each other when you were on a train.
Yes.
Years ago.
Yes, many years ago. And I listened to those, and honestly, if I am to be completely honest, I have been pro Amber Heard the whole time, and I have not wanted to be. I have wanted to be more neutral because that has been, the public position has been neutral or Johnny Depp. But I have been in it. It's a really exhausting position. Any of you who have a position on anything that goes against the grain, it's really difficult when you know that, whether it's about your position on gender, whether it's about your position on politics, whether it's about your position on this case. So by the time this second, lawsuit started, I was already very emotionally engaged in it, and I wrote sort of a very disjointed blog that I never published because I was so burnt out by it, and it was before any of the feminists had started talking about it in a way that was pro Amber Heard. So this podcast today is we're going to sort of discuss some
of Jamie's points. I think, to be fair, I spoke in the media about this case fucking day in, day out for weeks. It nearly killed me.
Do you remember I showed you the evidence that convinced you that Amber Heard was the one telling the truth and that she was the one. Yeah.
For me, I don't know if you remember, but for my switch point was when they fucking diagnosed her as having histrionic personality disorder.
But you predicted that.
Yeah, I did several days prior.
Yeah, because I'd just shown you all that evidence.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, it wouldn't surprise me if they diagnosed with borderline personality disorder next. And I was stood in the bedroom saying it to you, and then literally like a day or two later, that's exactly what they did, and I was like, fuck's sake. But like, as Jamie said, you know, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, you got really like upset around this trial, and it really triggering both of us. It was really difficult because there was so many things. Like, it wasn't just personal. It was like, for us and the work that we do and the women around us, we knew, and it slowly sunk in, didn't it, over several weeks, the impact that this was going to have for like all women. And it was like every day it was getting worse, and social media was ramping up every day, and every day me and you were like, oh my god, this is a fucking disaster for women. And it was that was getting at us. We were just like, oh my god, this is so bad, oh my god, this is so fucking bad. And it was like slowly seeping through us that we were like, fuck, this is going to be a... Because I said to you all the way through he was going to win, didn't I? Every time we asked, I was like, yeah, I think he's going to fucking win. And I knew that it was... You know, the jury were allowed on social media. They were allowed access to the media. Yeah, they were. Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know...
I think they were told that they shouldn't.
Yeah, I know they were, but they were also given time off and all sorts of stuff. So, like, what are you telling me, that they kept them in a room? Because they fucking didn't.
Yeah, and like, everybody, you rely on your phones nowadays. Like, it was being live streamed on YouTube. Like,
I know, it was
if
being
they have an
streamed on
iPhone,
YouTube.
if they have an iPhone, they'll get notifications coming up from their Apple News about it.
And like,
which
it's
is
not
interestingly what Amber Heard said recently. Even the most sort of balanced juror would have struggled immensely to not see
the media
coverage of this.
And the fact, don't even get me into the fact that they fucking chose to live televise it on YouTube through the Law and Crime Network, who, by the way, made a fucking fortune from that, as did lots of YouTube bloggers who decided to pick apart the case day in, day out. Some of them were making, I mean, I've read some stuff saying that some of them made $500,000. Some of them made like, so even just over 6 weeks, you know? Some of them made like 80,000, some of them made like 300,000, like purely from clicks and like ads and YouTube money. Like from basically just like rinsing Amber Heard all day, every day. Like the profit in it was huge. And the fact, do you remember the verdict? Do you remember when they were delivering the verdict?
7-point-something million live views.
Yeah, there was. But also, what I was going to say to you was actually the conduct of the presenters. It was like, oh, wow, there's so many millions of you tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is so exciting. Oh, my God. Oh, it's gone up to 3 million. There's 3 million tuning in. I was like, are we watching, like, the finale of Big Brother, or are we watching the fucking verdict of a case where a woman just disclosed, like, abuse for 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Like, cause, like, what the fuck am I watching? Me and you watched that, and actually that was what made me feel sick. It was the presenter being like, oh my God, thank you so much to everybody commenting online, it's been amazing. I'm like, what the fuck are we watching?
Yeah. It's been hard. It's been really hard, but I think that me and you have got some really interesting views on this, that a lot of them haven't perhaps been aired publicly. There's not been a lot of coverage. I think we're in quite a unique point with the work that we do, where we see a lot of this from a slightly different perspective and slightly more nuanced perspectives. And I don't know about you, but I've been way too burnt out to be talking about this in any depth, and I've only recently, I guess,
almost like been able to circle back to it.
Yeah.
I think like we had so much going on around us in our personal lives and all sorts of stuff, and then we were, you know, covering the Amber Heard case constantly. I was in the press over and over and over again, I actually do think it was this that led to me getting totally burned out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there was press from all over the world going, oh, Jess, can you do an interview at 1 a.m? No. Like, you know, oh, Jess, can we catch you later for an interview for NBC? What time will it be at? Oh, it'll probably be at 11 at night. You know, like, oh, it was too much, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes 5-6 interviews a day. Like,
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm really interested that you've written all this down, because I do find, and obviously I'm biased because I'm married to you and I love you so much, but I really love listening to your ideas and your scrutiny of things that go on in the world. And I know that having listened to a few of the things that you've said, like, I really am interested in talking to you about these points that you wrote down that you never really got to share, because your insight is so interesting to listen to. So how do you want to do this? How best can we do this? You want to pick out a few?
I can chat through some bits.
Yeah, sure.
So I wrote a load of my points down about in the first week of the trial. So a lot of this perspectives from the first week or the first or second week.
Yeah, before we knew everything.
Well, yeah, and before any of the feminists started speaking out about this.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I started talking about was that Amber Heard was being cast as like the poster girl to the What About Men movement, and that women are abusers too brigade. Despite, you know, the even the claims against her were very, very minimal and very, very disputed and actually lacked evidence. But the fact that there was even allegations in the public domain of a woman potentially being somewhat violent, she was cast as, you know, What About Men? She's the example of What About Men. Yeah. And she was a perfect example because, and, you know, we'll see it now, we're already seeing it. You know, women, feminists talk about male violence. Well, what about Amber Heard? Straight away to try and derail it.
Yeah, and if I'm in an academic position, if I'm lecturing or I'm teaching or I'm training or whatever, and somebody comes up with something like that where they go, I don't know, what about this woman who sexually abused children? Or what about this woman, or like that was a domestic abuse perpetrator? I always say to them, you can name one fucking woman because they're an exception. Like that. Whereas if I was to go, well, what about the 7,000 men that got put in prison for domestic abuse this year?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fact that you can name one woman, well, what, slow clap, well done. Like that just proves my point.
Yeah, but the issue with this is that there was the hashtag #Men2, which is a direct fuck you to the Me Too.
Yeah, it was.
Because it's not about men being victims, it's about saying fuck you, Me Too. It's about men.
Yeah, I agree, because a lot of the discussion and the commentary around this case, especially around Amber and Amber's behaviour and potentially, this position of Amber as a perpetrator, it was never about like men actually being legitimate victims of abuse, which obviously they are in loads of cases. Like you say, it was actually an attack on women saying that they're being subjected globally to significant proportions of domestic abuse. It was never actually about like, you know, saying, and now what can we do to support men's services? Or what can we do for men who are subjected to domestic abuse? Like, I was asked to do a particular project that's confidential whilst this was going on. You'll remember what I mean, where I had to debate an MRA about the Amber Heard case, and there was also another guy who was he worked in male domestic abuse services. Yeah. And actually, me and the man who worked in the male domestic abuse services fucking agreed on everything. Because actually, you know, like, I don't understand. In a way, I actually spoke to the producers afterwards and was like, you know, I don't know why you got me on here as if I was going to argue with that man and be like, men are not victims of domestic abuse or whatever, because it's fucking stupid. But so me and that man ended up like agreeing all the way through it. And then the MRA guy just like kept being an absolute dick and just like talking, like, what did he say to me?
He asked where the statistics were from and you were like, Crime Survey England and Wales. FBI stats, UN.
Yeah, and then he said something else about, I was talking about men, and he asked a stupid question. I can't remember what it was now anyway, but he was like trying to trip me up in it, but he was doing it in a really stupid way, and he just made himself look a fool.
Yeah.
But
because I think he said, "Oh well, I bet you think that men can't be victims, don't you, Jessica?"
Oh,
and you were like, "No."
Yeah, for sure. But like that, I think that's an example where like you've got men that actually are working in those male domestic abuse spaces where they're actually working day in day out with victims, like men who have fled domestic abuse or like are really struggling with their relationships where they've been abused and physically, sexually, emotionally, financially, whatever. And that man didn't see this case as positive for men.
No.
He did not at all.
No.
And nor did I.
No. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that another thing that I put is that comparatively, the barrage of claims against Depp were being ignored despite the evidence. The evidence that Depp was physically and sexually and psychologically abusive towards Amber Heard, there was much more evidence. However, because Amber Heard said that on a couple of occasions, you know, I did hit him back because he was slamming a door in my face, and I did hit him back because he tried to push my sister down the stairs. The fact that a woman was even potentially a little bit physical, violent, like acting in self-defense, anything like that, was seen as
almost like
horrific because women are not
like,
supposed to do that. So it meant that as a result, everything he did was ignored and minimised because she acted in a way that women are not supposed to act.
Okay, so this is a really... I completely agree with this, and I also think that... here's a good example of it, right, that I was thinking about from the evidence. That quote, that bit of audio of her going, like, okay, go tell everyone you're a victim of domestic abuse, Johnny. Go on, go tell them that I'm a man and I'm a victim of domestic abuse.
No, she didn't say that. She said... She was like, oh man, I'm a victim. That's what she said.
Yeah,
She was saying like, oh man, and then they were like, oh, you say man, and she didn't mean it as though he is a male. She meant it was like going, oh man, you know, I'm a victim.
But even still, even if she did mean that, let's just go along the lines
with
of
their argument
that she's being malicious and she's going, go on then, Johnny, go and fucking tell them that you're a domestic abuse victim. Go on, go and see what everybody thinks of you. Go tell the world. Right? Even if she was being malicious, right? Even that, I'm sorry, but that doesn't come anywhere near close to as bad as the shit he said, which was like, let's fucking kill her and burn her and rape her.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but those two things they should not be held in parallel, but they were. In fact, actually, they weren't held in parallel.
No, they weren't in parallel.
What she said was seen as much worse than what he said.
And then you get the Darvo, and then also the sort of excuse of it where women were saying, bloody hell, well, if they'd have seen my phone, things I said about my ex, right? But why did you say those things about your ex? What did your ex do to you?
But then that was their argument. Their argument was that Johnny actually said that about Amber because it was like revenge fantasies towards a perp, right?
Of course. But
I don't buy that for 1 minute.
Absolutely not.
Not only do I not buy it, but actually his language consistently across all of the evidence, all text messages, like all emails, everything that they have for the first case in the UK and for the second case in the US, that is a consistent form of language that he talks about women in that way. Yeah. He doesn't just talk about Amber in that way.
Exactly.
So I'm sorry, but no.
Yeah, exactly. And that was my point, is that, you know, he is showing a pattern of behaviour where he is being abusive and she isn't. But because of misogyny, because of the campaign and the smear campaign against Amber Heard, they've managed to twist it and flip it.
But also
on its head.
It's because of what you said. It's because he can say all that really violent, horrific shit about raping her burnt corpse, right? And everyone will find an excuse. But a woman being seen as nasty
Yeah.
is
seen
just
as
too
worse.
fucking far for
Yeah.
people, you know? So, like, for example, there's a audio where she's like, you're such a fucking baby. Like,
Yeah.
stop acting like a baby. And people have literally been like, oh my God, that's so abusive. But then I've replied and been like, well, what about this, this, and this that Johnny said about women? Like, calling them fishy, like flaps and bucket
Yeah.
and, like, calling them sluts and whores
Yeah.
and strippers and stuff. And they're like, oh, well, you know, that's like, it's just inventing. Like, oh, is it? Wow.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, that pissed me off no end. That sort of like, let's find every excuse possible for what is very clearly like incel proper
And the
fucking...
language that he's using, honestly, I would be surprised if he hasn't got a username, like a private username on Reddit or 4chan or something, where he is saying stuff, because that is exactly the same language
around her hitting the wall and shit.
Yep.
And like the way he talks about her being like a dime a dozen sort of like whore and stuff like that. I've seen that shit when I get trolled. Like I've seen that shit from 4chan. I've seen that shit from like Tumblr and Reddit and stuff. Like I've seen that shit before. That language is quite specific actually. People on the outside might not notice that, but like some of us did.
Yeah.
You know, you read those text messages and you think, that ain't the first time you've said that about a woman.
No.
And the fact that like his like friends respond to him in a way, like Paul Bettany, for example. How come nobody's talking about Bettany? Nobody's talking about the fact that Paul Bettany's fucking sending text messages like that. He's a fucking really famous dude that, like, you know, he's sending messages back, laughing with his friend, plotting, killing a woman, raping her, and he doesn't flinch once.
Yeah,
Paul Bettany does not flinch.
I think it's important at this point as well. You know, revenge fantasies are normal, and even to the extent of killing is relatively normal. But once sex and arousal and anything to do that gets mixed in, nope, not normal. Because why would you be aroused from causing pain?
Well, I had a woman, again, like giving me aggro about this, saying it was revenge fantasies and that they're completely normal. And I said, and she was like, I had revenge fantasies about my perp, and I put back, why did you want to rape him?
Exactly.
And she was like, no. And I was like,
exactly. Because that's like
she was like, no, but I wanted to kill him. I was like, right.
Exactly.
But did you want to have sex with him after he died? And she was like, absolutely not. And I was like, right. So there is a difference then, isn't there?
I think that there really is a difference that we are talking about around wanting somebody to die and wanting to have sex and rape somebody who is dead.
What do you get out of that?
That for me, there are men who have done horrific things to me. Not at one point would I ever think about wanting to and at that point,
never
that's
even
just
enters your head, does it?
No, and the thought of that makes me want to throw up and cry.
Like it's just. Also, if we just go from an academic point of view, just from an evidence-based point of view, just for a moment, we know loads about, you know, like sort of theories around the belief systems and the way that sex offenders, rapists, traffickers, murderers think about their victims, the way that they desensitise themselves, the language that they use, and so on. All of the fucking research very, very, very clearly states that fantasizing about rape, fantasizing about like killing a victim and then having sex with them and then like sharing that fantasy with other people and making jokes about it and constantly desensitizing yourself to it is a fucking red flag.
Yeah, it absolutely is a red flag. I did a bit of research around this as well, and I was looking into the threads that were exposed from incel groups on 4chan and Reddit, and I was looking at how similar the language and the communication style is between sort of basically society's most ills, and that they're like the language that Johnny Depp is using it's like identicals to some of this stuff. And it's...
I mean, the dude is clearly, like, has misogynistic views. That's clear from his text messages and from his approach and stuff. But this goes back to what we talked about in the last episode of this podcast, that if you've got such widespread misogyny and internalised misogyny in the society, people aren't going to understand misogynistic language, misogynistic values, misogynistic belief systems, terms, phrases. They don't know what incel culture is. They don't know what MRA is, or they don't know what any of this shit means.
Yeah.
So when you're on the internet trying to say to people, look how similar this language is, this is misogyny, this is real prejudice and contempt, this is, like, you know, sexualization, objectification, they're sort of like, what are you on about? He just hates her. Like, you just don't like her because she's horrible to him. Like, that's why.
But the fact that she hates him is seen as abusive, and the fact that he hates her is seen as, oh, he's a poor victim.
Yeah, agreed. Wells is on that you wrote down.
The next point that I was talking about was that society have been left feeling uneasy, particularly of recent, because influential women's rights movements and organisations have been naming the problem of male violence against women and girls, and we've had more of a platform, and we've had more sort of power over it and exposing it. So, you know, we've got sort of police forces looking into this, we've got governments looking into it, and things like that. And then I've put that if 97% of women have been sexually harassed, there was the UN women's study, there was our study that replicated that. 50% up to 50% of women have been subjected to rape, over 30% subjected to domestic violence. How many men then are rapists, abusers and perpetrators? That would mean that there's a lot. So that then means that the defensiveness...
It's billions.
The defensiveness then makes sense, doesn't it? Because of course they would be defensive, because they are either one of them or connected to them. So I think that another point that I've made that connects to that is that, what would you rather believe? That abuse and violence isn't a gendered crime, that and I've put here that your beloved son is no more likely to be a rapist or a murderer than your daughter, and that your daughter is no more likely to be a victim of these than your son, or that we're in a pandemic of male violence against women that is showing zero signs of slowing down, and that we as individuals are all but completely powerless in changing this. And the fact that we will then have to accept that actually our sons, our brothers, our dads are relatively likely to be perpetrators of this.
Yep.
Is a very bitter pill to swallow.
Yep, for sure. It makes women, even feminists, extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, it does. And it makes us want to jump to the defence of them. And when we are seeing something played out on a global stage where we can use this case to our advantage in terms of excusing male violence and denying male violence, that comes from another perspective as well that we'll move on to, then we can use it and we will want to use it. I was going to say that the next point is that when the lay public are faced with those stats, you know, the 97% and you know, and all the others, is that it's frightening. It makes women feel statistically vulnerable just for being female as a result of the actions of the other half of the population. When we train professionals, when we show them the data around this, there is a lot of discomfort, isn't there?
Yeah,
there's a lot of sort of, right,
even amongst
like,
people that literally do this for a fucking living.
Yeah, and they say this is a really gloomy and you know, like, this feels like there's no nuance there and that everyone's just going to be a victim, and I think that it needs to be more considered than that, and it's a case of, right, but these are the stats. But also, like,
why do you want it to be more nuanced or more considered? Like, you know, it's because you don't want to accept reality.
Exactly,
you don't want to accept the truth.
Accept this. Yeah.
Yeah, and people feel very... Because what it comes back to is as you say, you know, do you want to acknowledge or even accept that you actually live in a society where, as a woman, you are very likely to be raped or abused or subjected to some form of male violence, and as a man or a boy, you are very likely to actually perpetrate it as well. And I'll tell you what it is. It's not the first part of that makes people uncomfortable. It's the fucking second part. Yeah. Because you know what? You like you say, you can go around fucking like, I don't know, some fucking office or back of a club toilet door, and it'll say, you know, 1 in 3 women will be raped, or 1 in 4 women are victims of domestic abuse. And like, we've almost normalised and desensitised people to these constant victim statistics.
Yeah.
There ain't no perp statistics because that make people uncomfortable as fuck. Yeah. If it said something like 1 in 4 men abuse their partners, or 1 in 3 men
are rapists.
Can
you imagine?
Oh my God, fucking country be up in arms.
Yeah.
People would go fucking bonkers, wouldn't they? They'd be like, how dare you accuse them of this? Yeah. Right, well, if we're fucking wrong, what do you think it is? 1 dude? Yeah. I think it's a handful of men performing 800 crimes a day. Don't be fucking stupid.
And I think that there is a lot of weight in that men have many, many, many victims. And we can still accept that. But also acknowledge that actually there's a lot
Flash,
of them.
are they?
No.
So, like, yes, like, for example, there are studies from the 90s onwards that suggest that, for example, by the time a man is actually imprisoned for sex crimes, like sexual offences, he's probably had, on average, I think it's something like 326 or 356 victims, right? That's by prisoners' own admission, right? But that's over years and years. That's sometimes decades, right? So, I'm sorry, but that still does not explain why there are hundreds of thousands of offences per year. There has to be thousands and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of offenders. There has to be.
Yeah.
It's not like 10 men just going around doing as much as they can, busy, like fucking, like they're like Santa on Christmas Eve, going to as many houses as they fucking can. I'm sorry, but like, you know what I mean? They're not,
absolutely.
Like, they're not magically doing it as fast as possible. It is the reason that so many women are subjected to it is because so many men are doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
People don't want to hear that shit.
Yeah.
Because it means, like you say, their brothers, their dads, their uncles, their granddads, their own sons, their best friends, their own husband, their boyfriends, their exes.
Yeah.
It's men that, like, that's what women don't want to do either. They don't, and like men and women, they don't ever want to think that they actually know a perp, but actually, statistically, you'll know loads. You just won't fucking know it. I mean, some of them, you'll have a bit of an inkling. You know, you might think, oh, I don't fucking like him. I don't like the way he treats his missus when he's had a drink. I'll tell you something now. If he treats her like that when he's had a drink in front of you all in the pub, I can guarantee you he does worse at home.
Yeah.
Fucking closed doors.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, so if there's men around you that make you dead uncomfortable, you think, well, I don't fucking like the way he speaks to his missus. Right, well, that's what he'll do in front of you. So...
yeah, I can guarantee that he'll do
it's worse when she's on her own. And then you've got that sort of weird feeling you get from some men where you think, oh, he's a bit lechy, he makes me feel very uncomfortable. I don't want to be left alone with that man. Right, well, if your heckles are going up, there's something fucking wrong. You know what I mean? Like, there's other men that don't make you feel like that. So there's something wrong with that particular dude.
Yeah.
You got any other points on there you wanted to raise?
Yeah, I think some of the other points that I wanted to raise is about the amount of women, and actually women who identify as feminists, who are on the Justice for Johnny Depp bandwagon. I've started to...
This case split feminism.
It really has.
And it didn't split it down the middle either. It split it literally like fucking 2% versus 98%. Because there wasn't a lot that was supporting.
And there was a lot who were silent on purpose.
Yeah, I know there was.
And I think so one of the things that I have come across, and this isn't for, I guess, what we would consider the big feminists, but more women who see themselves as feminists on your Facebook, on your Instagram, where, you know, over the years, if you're a feminist and you've shared posts about women's rights, then you'll have got the comments, you don't care about male victims. And then you have to feel like, well, of course I do.
Yeah.
Like, and you know that you do. Like, of course you do. But when are there cases about male victims? They're very rare, especially with a female aggressor. So now I feel like there's a sort of societal pressure that's being put on individual feminist women to be seen to be taking a stand against domestic abuse where the perpetrator allegedly is a female and the victim allegedly is a male. So it means that in order for women's own credibility as a feminist to be taken seriously, even though it's when it is by people who are not being sincere at all, that they feel they need to support Johnny Depp, because otherwise they'll be accused of only caring about the gender of the victim.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of that was going on, and I think that I saw a lot of women that almost used it as their way of saying, yes, I do care about male victims. Look, I support Johnny Depp and I hate Amber. You know? Which in itself is problematic, because a lot of those women were also hating on Amber because of like what she looked like, or like, and I thought, oh, this isn't about this. This is about your misogyny.
Yeah, but also they would have been getting likes, kudos,
support,
yeah,
for sure,
because they were being misogynistic towards the woman who they hated.
Yep.
So that's really difficult, I think, for the feminist movement to come back from. You know, we have spent so many years trying to fight against victim blaming narratives, perfect victim narratives.
Yeah.
And within this case, we have seen them all been brought to the forefront.
Yeah, I was really fucking disappointed with the amount of women who claim to be feminists, who are quite vocal generally, using the perfect victim stereotype, being like, real victims would have done this, real victims would have said this. If she was a real victim, she'd have more injuries. If she was a real victim, she would have told somebody. And I was watching it play out thinking, fucking hell.
And it was like, oh, she's like not even crying.
Yeah, I know. And it's like real victims would, when I was in court, I cried. Like, fuck, like, I literally, I'm sorry, but I'm going to hold my hands up and say I've made a mistake. I thought we were way ahead of that in our feminism in the UK, but fuck me, no, we're not.
No.
We are not.
And if I'm going to be completely honest, I think that so much of our movements in feminism, in violence against women, is where we have listened to victims, and we have used one victim's story to create the narrative.
Like the story.
And that's not true. You know, women all have different stories, different things that they've been subjected to, different ways that they have reacted, that we have reinforced some of these stereotypes and some of these perfect victim stereotypes from the victims who we've platformed, when actually, in reality, the vast majority of us are victims, and we all have a story to tell, and we've all acted
very
differently, and we're not one homogenous group, because 51% of the population, if these stats are correct, around 97% of us being sexually harassed in the street between the ages of 18 to 25, the vast majority of us are victims. Just because we're victims doesn't mean that we're one homogenous group, doesn't mean that we all react the same, doesn't mean that we've all been subjected to the same thing.
Yep.
So that therefore means that, we might have these stereotypes and we're trying to live up to them, and we're trying to, show them in the public and relate them to this case, but that's not true.
No.
And actually, because so many women have been subjected to so many different things, and women are different, we all vote differently, we all think differently, we all have different upbringings, we all went to different schools, that that actually the majority of us are not going to have or relate to the perfect victim stereotype.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that it's impossible to achieve. Like, theoretically, it's literally impossible to achieve.
Yeah, of course.
But it doesn't stop us from measuring ourselves or other women against it.
No.
Like, you won't achieve it, and nor will any other woman, but women will measure you against it, and so will everybody else. I think the perfect victim stereotype really reared its head in our feminism, in radical feminism, more so, actually. I did really struggle with that because I thought we were further ahead, and it really made me realise that we weren't, and we're not in the position that we thought we were, and we're definitely not as intelligent or as progressive as we'd like to think we are. And as you say, you know, I did see quite a lot of women in the last few weeks sort of reflect on what they saw happen in feminism and sort of go, well, in that case, I wouldn't be believed because, you know, I didn't cry, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Well, then am I not real?
Yeah.
You know, and I know that I actually didn't think about my own personal experiences during this, but I did the other day because I read a thread from a woman who said, you know, when she went to the police and reported rape, she didn't cry once because she was so almost like disassociated from it. She just didn't. She just literally matter-of-factly was like, this is what happened, and this is when it happened, and this is what it was like, and this is the man, and the da-da-da-da-da. And she actually tweeted and was like, so what does that make me then, according to these feminists? What, am I not a real victim because I didn't react like X, Y, and Z?
But then you have the opposite, though, don't you, where I actually think that women, because as a society, women are disbelieved, that you actually get women who are saying, well, as a real victim, I did this, this, and this, and therefore I don't believe Amber Heard.
Yeah, I know.
And then they get, because the vast majority of people online were pro Johnny Depp, they actually get this faux support.
Yeah.
Where they're saying, see, look at this real victim, she doesn't believe Amber Heard. And then she's getting this faux support. And as an individual, that validates her.
But she wouldn't have been believed anyway.
Yeah, and that validates her as a victim. But actually, in terms of the wider societal issue, that is not what's going on. I saw a viral tweet where somebody said, what was it? You remember it, Jess, where it said about... so I just found it. Where women have said, oh, you know, I'm a real victim of domestic violence and domestic abuse, and I believe Johnny. And then people saying, well, you know that your abuser can sue you for saying that now, right? So congratulations. And, you know, they'll sort of get the kudos from Depp supporters being like, see, we care about, like, the faux sort of, we care about all victims regardless of gender, and this woman was a domestic abuse survivor and she believes Johnny Depp. Her perpetrator could sue her now. But
also, like, because I totally agree with that, I saw that viral tweet, it went super, super big, but also, though, like... It just goes to show how fucking subjective and judgmental this was. Because if we put two accounts up that both had, I don't know, 100,000 followers, and one of them said, I am a domestic abuse victim and I believe Johnny, and one that says, I'm a domestic abuse victim and I believe Amber,
the one who supports Johnny would be seen as
the real victim,
and the one who supports Amber would have been seen as
like attention seeker
and that they were lying.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and actually, you know, it goes to show that her original op-ed, which she is being sued by, is fucking true.
It's accurate, yeah.
Where she said, you know, I've been seen as a public figure of domestic abuse, and I've faced the wrath of it from society, and that's just played itself out again. The first trial,
she should write another op-ed. Say the exact same thing.
Yeah, but like the first trial, let's not forget, was brought against the son.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And then, when she was a victim, and they managed to uphold 12 cases or 12 incidents where they could substantiate a claim that he was abusive, physically abusive towards Amber Heard. And then because of that, she was seen, it had nothing to do with her, she was seen as a victim of domestic violence.
Oh,
and
the
then
son,
because
it was that the son called him a wife beater.
Yeah, but then he wasn't a wife beater to the heir, he was a wife beater to her.
Yeah, I know.
So then she was seen as that, you know, public figure who had been subjected to domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And then she was, you know, immediately the trolls, the incels, the 4chan, all of them were coming for Amber Heard.
I really struggled with, I'll tell you what I struggled with. I struggled with some of the leading feminists who comment on every fucking case possible, write articles about it, they're in the press all the time, giving comments on these cases, where women have actually committed serious crime, where they've murdered people.
Oh, yeah.
Like, where, like, women have actually, like, you know, killed their kids or something, right?
Or killed somebody else's kid.
Yeah, right. Where you've got feminists writing articles going, you know, I stand by her and she's had a really rough life and, you know, I really support her and I don't think she should be punished and she should be seen as a victim of male violence and patriarchy, you know, on a global scale and so on, right? And then you've got one of the biggest global cases that have ever happened, and this is extremely important, of defamation. This case was not about who was guilty.
No.
Right? And that we've got to get that through to people. It was not about who did what. It was about whether she was allowed to say what happened.
Yeah.
That's what the case was about. The case was about, was she allowed to talk about it? And even then, she didn't fucking talk about it. All she made was 2 or 3 phrases, you know, one of which was, she said, like you said, that I've become a public figure in domestic violence. The second phrase that she used was, I've seen what happens when, you know, men rally around, industry rallies around powerful men that get accused of abuse. And then there was another phrase that related to something like that, right? She didn't go in the op-ed. She didn't go in the op-ed and go, I was a victim of domestic abuse and Johnny Depp did this, this and this to me and Johnny Depp's a dickhead and Johnny Depp's like, she didn't go in and say anything like that.
She also talked a lot in that op-ed about abuse that she faces in her childhood.
Yeah, right. So actually what this entire case was about was not about who did it and who's innocent and who's guilty. It was about, is she allowed to say it out loud from her perspective?
Not even out loud. She's not even allowed to write it.
No, right? So what I was annoyed about, I think, was that we've got women who are very vocal, very intelligent and very experienced writers, activists and so on, and they just thought, nah, fuck that.
Yeah, I'm not getting involved in that.
I'm not talking about that. You think, you fucking what? This is going to have impacts for decades and you've not said shit, right? And then what pissed me off was when the verdict came out, and after weeks and weeks and weeks of several of us being like, this is going to be terrible for women, this case is going to be terrible for women, defamation cases are going to increase, men are going to start suing women who talk about abuse, right?
And they
left,
are.
right and centre, and it is already happening. And then
Jamie Spears is looking at filing for defamation against Britney.
Against
TMZ of
hang
sort
on,
of
which
aired
Jamie?
The dad.
A dad.
The dad. Marilyn
Oh my
Manson is looking
God.
at doing it. Brad Pitt is looking at doing it against Angelina Jolie in sort of a slightly different... But it's just opened up so much. And I think also what's very telling is...
There's no such thing as freedom of speech then. That's the end of that then.
Well, exactly. But also I think what's telling is that we've had Weinstein, Spacey, Epstein, right? All of those cases of not being as big as this one. We get one case where there is some sort of, you know, is the perpetrator, is the aggressor female? And it's become the biggest DV case in the last decade.
Yeah, right.
Ever. Possibly ever.
Yeah, right.
And it's where, wrongfully, in my opinion, the victim has been seen as male.
Yeah, I don't think he is a victim.
I think that tells us everything we need to know about whether men are taken seriously in DV or not, and whether women are taken seriously in DV.
So I tried to
or
make
not.
this point in a TV interview a few weeks back where I said, if you take all of your emotion out of this completely, if you step away from this, what you actually have is 2 people in the same relationship alleging the same thing against each other, okay?
Yeah.
So let's just go from it like that. You've got one man, one woman. What the woman says, I'm a victim of domestic abuse. The man says, no, I am a victim of domestic abuse. The woman got fucking vilified.
Yep.
The man got believed.
Yep.
Why? Because technically, if we're saying that this is an equal issue, that is equal in society...
Or even that women are believed more.
Yeah, and we argue that women are believed over men. How did that happen? They are both two people, both celebrities, in a relationship, and they're both alleging the exact same thing against each other. So how did it happen that the woman ended up diagnosed with fucking 2 mental illnesses that she doesn't have, fucking
one of them
trolled relentlessly online, vilified, demonised, fucking outcast, manipulated, memeified, fucking everything you can think of. And the man was believed, everything he said was believed, but also every bad thing he did was just sort of written off, whitewashed, sort of, oh, it's not that bad, oh, he's just venting, oh, he was just angry, oh, he was just stressed, oh, he had a lot going on, oh, he was trying to deal with it, right? That, for me, was the whole, that's all I need to know about this, right? But also, the second thing that came for me about this is all I need to know about this entire case was his text messages. For me, when people were going, he's innocent, believe Johnny is a victim, I read those text messages and I read a couple of other emails and sort of bits of evidence that are in his words that he does not dispute. And I read them and I thought, nah, I've got my measure of him. Yeah. Nah, I'm good. I don't need to know anything else about this. That man's not innocent.
Yeah.
And that was all I needed to know. Those text messages are absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
They're terrifying. They're the stuff that you see dangerous offenders, right? I'm sorry, but it is.
And there was that wasn't there that sex toy retailer?
Oh my god, I couldn't believe, when you told me that, I couldn't believe what you're telling me.
Yeah, where they created a dildo that was based on the testimony that Amber Heard gave, where she was sexually assaulted, raped with a bottle of whiskey, I think, some sort of bottle of liquor. And when have we ever seen that? When, in another case where the woman, where a man has been seen as, as the aggressor actually.
Yeah, I know.
Can you imagine?
Honestly, I couldn't believe, when you told me that, I actually I couldn't believe what you're telling me. I couldn't believe that a company went out and commissioned a dildo based on a woman's testimony. Whether you believe it or not is frankly irrelevant.
Yeah. So I spoke a little bit about it, and I said
you gave a statement to a magazine about it, didn't you?
Yeah, and one of the things that I said was that is that I'll have to find it, but one of the things that I said is that sexual violence against women is sexualized.
Yeah, absolutely is.
So the fact that we've got a dildo based on the sexual abuse of Amber Heard is disgusting, but also that lends itself to wider society in this case, because this isn't just a one-off. We've got, you scroll through TikTok, the amount of women who are using the audio of Amber Heard talking about how Johnny Depp had sexually abused her, where they were slobbering over it, and they would be like, "Oh my god, that's so hot! I wish she'd have done that."
Oh my god, I couldn't believe that either.
And it was sexualized. Women's abuse is sexualized, even to the point where other women want it to happen to them.
Can I just want to read something out for those of you that don't know what me and Jamie are talking about. God, this is so fucking bad. I tried not to look at this too much because this really is triggering, to be honest with you. So, a company made a dildo that looks exactly like a liquor bottle, and it's by Twisted Fantasies. They put it on their social media, and it's absolutely fucking disgusting. And the advert says, "Reach a new depth with the new Amber's Mark liquor bottle dildo. designed with a solid base and girthy shaft with textured drips for extra pleasure. The drips are blood.
No,
What the fuck
drips,
are they? Why are they red?
No, it's not. It's on that liquor bottle. It's got wax around it.
Has it?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
One, it has drips of wax?
Yeah.
Okay, right, I thought it was blood. To be honest with you, it looks like fucking blood to me. But, like, fine, if it's wax, it's wax. But it still looks like fucking blood to me.
It's wax.
And
It doesn't make it any better.
no, it doesn't. Like, and the whole thing, I can't, there's so many things I can't get my head around. Like, I always think about this when someone comes up with a product that's this fucking horrific. I always think, 1, somebody had the idea. 2, someone else then went, that's a great idea. And then 3, someone else then went, let's put it in production. Someone else then went, let's commission a factory to make them. And then the factory got the commission and went, yeah, okay then. And then they built it.
And then people are buying it.
And and then you've got the consumer right at the end of that. But I always think, how many people did that go through?
Yeah.
To get to the point where it's now on Twitter being advertised as a new product where you can click the link and buy it. Hashtag justice for Johnny Depp. Fuck off.
I know.
Justice for Johnny Depp, what? Making a fucking sex toy?
Do we have these? Do we have these for like justice for the Kevin Spacey? Like, I'm not saying that Amber Heard is an abuser, but it just goes to show the difference between when society sees a male as the abuser versus a female.
Yeah, I know.
So have we got like justice for the victims of Kevin Spacey?
Yeah.
Have we got justice for the victims of Harvey Weinstein? Justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, I know. It fucking, that for me was like, honestly, no matter what you fucking think about this case, if you think that making a sex toy based on a woman disclosing, whether you believe her or not is irrelevant, because women have been raped by bottles.
Yeah.
Like all over the world. Like, if you think that's fucking rare, you're wrong, right? You know, I've worked with women that have been raped with all sorts of things. Fucking metal bars, fucking bottles, like, just random shit that men pick up. Like, if you, like, the fact that anybody made that and is selling it, and like you said, people are buying it, that, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but, like, if you can sit back and think that that's fucking normal,
Yeah.
that's where we're at, apparently, as a society, and that makes me want to go and fucking live on another planet, because that's terrifying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just wanted to say, because I'm just wary that we've been chatting about this for an hour. I think me and you could talk about this for days, frankly, because I think it's done our head in, like, both of us. Obviously, I stepped in. I'm not going to labour this point, because I was like, you know, I think Jamie's points are probably more interesting than mine, actually, on this, but I did step into this case and start doing media around the time that Amber was positioned as mentally ill. And the reason that I chose to do so and stand up was because I know that in criminal court and in family court and in private court, this is what's happening to women. That you come out, you say something, and very quickly you get some fucking psychologist that's been paid a few grand to come in, do an assessment, met you for an hour, 45 minutes, and something else that happened during lockdown, that was done over Zoom. Those fucking mental health assessments, those personality disorder assessments, done over Zoom.
Yeah.
So there are women walking around in society right now that were in a family court case or a criminal case, but more likely family court, where they were arguing with their exes over custody or over a divorce or over contact of their children because the man was abusive or whatever it was, and were diagnosed over Zoom as having a personality disorder by a psychologist they've never fucking met, right? And now they've got a diagnosis that they don't agree with, and was clearly a malicious, purposeful diagnosis, the same as what happened to Amber. Deliberate, on purpose, thought through, calculated diagnosis to make them look non-credible. That was when I stood up, because I was like, hell fucking no, are we watching that happen on a fucking global stage? Because it will normalise it, and it did. It totally normalised it.
Did.
And there were women in the family courts messaging me, fucking frantically going, oh my god, like, this is what's going to happen to me. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Message her back? Go, no, it isn't.
Because
it fucking
it will. And it is.
I know. And I was just thinking, oh my god, this is fucking terrifying. And, like, it validated what I'd written about in Sexy But Psycho this is exactly what I've been fucking telling you. This is what's going to happen in women's rights. This is what's going to happen in abuse. This is the fucking route they're going down. And it's working.
Yeah.
She got diagnosed with a fucking disorder that isn't even used anymore.
Yeah, histrionic personality disorder.
Like, anybody in that legal team could have stood up and gone, well, that's not even used anymore, what are you on about?
Yeah.
Like, but they don't have the knowledge. Because psychiatric disorders sound all so scientific, don't they? Like, they don't have the evidence
base to rebut it. And then you've got people on the internet who are learning about this shit from people on TikTok who are trying to say, oh, histrionic personality disorder is an extreme form of narcissism. I saw that online. No, it fucking isn't.
No,
you have no fucking clue about what you're on about.
Technically, even though I don't agree any of them exist, that's why there's so-called narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah.
It's a different form of PD.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got people online spreading absolute shit about this stuff and just being believed.
Yep.
And look at the harm it's doing. Look at how that made Amber look completely non-credible.
They brought it in at exactly... Like, let's talk about this from a tactical point of view.
They brought it in at the very start.
Depp's team, they knew exactly what they were going to do with that. They knew how it was going to work. They knew how it was going to play out. And they knew they were going to completely destroy her with those psychiatric diagnoses. They knew that. And they knew... right, think about it this way. He went first, right? His case was presented first.
Yep.
And then they were able to cross-examine her first.
Yeah.
It was at that point that they got the psychologist in to suggest that she was mentally ill and she has a personality disorder. Then it was her turn. Well, it's too fucking late then.
Yeah, they
That's it. You've discredited whatever comes out of her mouth now.
Exactly.
You fucked her over. Yeah. And they knew that's what they were doing. Honestly, I think this case is, like... I was thinking about it. I don't know how any feminist activist or woman working in this sector has actually walked away from this and not been totally fucking burnt out. I saw some women celebrate the verdict and I just thought, you really do not understand what you're celebrating. Because I saw a woman also say, I don't care about this. This is just two celebrities just fighting out their dirty laundry in public. This doesn't impact anybody else. It's a waste of everyone's time.
Only.
Yeah, I know. And I thought, you really don't understand what just happened, do you?
Yeah, I've hated the stuff where people have been like, Ukraine have been at war for this long, and look at all the coverage of the Depp Heard trial. Like, come on, we can care about two things at once.
Yeah.
This is about misogyny. Actually. This case is literally about misogyny and violence against women and girls, but personified.
Yeah, for sure. I had a lot of that, you know. I had a lot of people, like, every time I commented anything about the massive impact this case was going to have on women and girls globally who tried to speak about abuse, I had people literally messaging me and commenting going, yeah, but you've not posted about Ukraine today.
Yeah, it's almost like, right? You know the blog you wrote about saying, stop asking me what about men? Mm-hmm. It's like that.
It's because it's derailment.
Well, it is. You don't see, like, people talk about, well, I mean, you don't have, like, people talking about Ukraine where they're like, well, what about violence against women in the home? You don't get that. But you do get
the rape pandemic.
Yeah, but you do get, like, you know, we'll talk about the Depp and Heard trial, like, well, what about what's happening in Palestine?
Yeah, I've had that as well. I get that as well.
Yes. We can talk about more than one thing. We can care about more than one thing.
I honestly think, as a conclusion, really, for this podcast, I really think that this, I'm willing to put money on this. I think this is going to be, and has been, one of the worst things that could possibly have happened to women's rights, the Vogue sector, our conversations around male violence, our conversations around women speaking out. It's the death of Me Too. It's the death of naming your fucking perpetrator. It's the death of, like, being able to talk online. I got a message from a woman who said to me that she wrote an anonymous blog about her abuse and her perpetrator, and it was one of the things that literally gave her back power, and she was like, fuck it, I'm deleting it all. She was like, there's no way I'm risking that. And she said, if anyone finds out that it's him that I've spoken about and my abuse, she was like, he will sue me and he'll probably win and he's got a lot of money. And she was like, fuck that, I'm getting rid of it. And she said, do you think I should delete it? And I said to her, if you are scared and you think that's a possibility and it will make you feel safer by deleting it, then delete it.
Yeah.
Because you've got to put yourself first.
Yeah.
And like, she was really upset. You know? I think this case is a fucking... I really think it's where we're at. Like, I think it revealed what we really think about domestic abuse as a global society.
Yeah, I do. And I think that there's a part of me where I think we were getting somewhere, and we have brought the conversation and the discourse back. It's dragged it back.
Yo, it fucking has, dragged it.
And I think that has happened, and I think that it has also simultaneously shone a light on how society feel about women, and vocal victims in particular.
Yeah, for sure. I agree totally with what you just said, and I think that actually it made me think, and one of the things I really struggled with during the 6 weeks was it really made me rethink, you know, almost like all this, white ribbon. And by the way, I'm not bashing the white ribbon campaign. What I mean is general public going, you know, I'm against domestic abuse and I wear a white ribbon and all the rest of it. And like almost like more and more public campaigns around domestic abuse where I thought maybe the public were getting it, and then they've been given an example of domestic abuse, albeit a fairly complex one, but whatever. But
they're all complex.
But they are. But they slipped right into every single trope possible that I thought we'd worked on. I've been working in this field 12 fucking years. I thought we'd moved on and we've not.
I think that what it's actually shown is that the people against it, they're more common, and they've been given an avenue to you know,
a little bit like
they've sort of had a mandate to have those views.
Yeah, and I was going to say a little bit like how
they've been emboldened,
like how black communities felt in America around how Trump validated white people's racism and gave them an avenue to actually express it in a safe way. I mean, I hope you understand what I mean by that, by safe way. It was almost like Trump was being openly
same
racist.
As Britain with Brexit.
Yeah, that's right. And he brought it out in people around Brexit.
Yeah,
too.
literally, like the next day, like I had friends where they said that they were like walking down the street and they're like, "Oh, have you seen this? You'll be gone soon. You'll be put on one of these flights soon back to where you came from."
Yeah,
and they'd be like, "I was fucking born here."
Yeah, but also those are people that wouldn't have said boo to a fucking goose a week prior.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're emboldened, aren't they? And it's the same with this.
And then that's what dominates public discourse. That's what dominates then, you know, policy.
Yep. A fucking mess.
I hope that Amber wins the appeal. There's a very high chance that she will, but the damage has already been done.
Yeah, it has. And it's not just been done to her either.
No.
The damage has well and truly been done to...
She didn't bring about this case, he did.
Yep. It's been... I still think that we'll look back on this case 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
I think in 20 years' time, we will look back on this the same way that we're doing with Britney right now.
I think still people are processing the fact that Britney was abused and controlled and drugged up.
Look what happened
medicated,
with Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake said that she was abusive to him and that she cheated on him all the time, and it was actually all bullshit.
Yeah.
And he let those rumours go ahead, and now he's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry." Fucking too little, too late.
Yeah.
Look what you've done to her. Look what you've been complicit in.
Yeah, but I think a lot.
And now we're watching this with Amber Heard.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
And then we look back and we say, "Gosh, didn't we make the wrong decision?" Luckily now we've made so much progress that we can acknowledge that. No, every now and again we get this sort of God complex where we think, haven't we made so much progress? No, we get a little drip of it every decade.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. I agree. On that fierce note, shall we end this? Because I couldn't agree with that more. Love you. Sorry, that was a rough one. Right.
Oh, before we end, I just want to say that Victim Focus have got a free course for anyone subjected to any kind of sexual violence. It's on our website. You can do it for free, completely anonymously. We've had over 60,000 people take it already. And it's just a self-help course that you can take at completely your own pace. It's got a mixture of like videos and parts where you can read and parts where you can write. Men or women.
Yeah, anyone can take it all anywhere in the world. We also have Spanish translation of it.
Yeah.
And then we're working on other translations, but the Spanish translation is on the website.
Yeah, so, you know, like, that's something that I'm really proud of us having. And it's helped so many people. So, you know, please feel free to use it if you do want to.
Good shout. Okay. Right, we better finish then.
Bye, everyone.